Hello, and before we get started today, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Jess, who joined our second tier on Patreon. We are so happy to have you. By we, I mean me and all the other people on Patreon, I'm sure, are all happy to have you. I'm so glad that you want more episodes, that you're willing to invest in a show this chaotic. Just thank you for being along for the ride. And I'm sorry it took so long to get your shout out, but for once in my life, I have been very ahead. So huge shout out to Jess, who actually joined a couple weeks ago. And we also had someone jump up from tier 1 to tier 2 who said I didn't have to give them a shout out, but I will. Thank you so much for taking that next step. Patreon support means a lot to me financially, and just it feels great knowing that people are that interested in what I'm putting out there. So thank you so much. This show literally couldn't go on without you. And enjoy your episode. Hello and welcome back to your weekly episode of Mad Times with Madison, with me, your host, Madison, if that wasn't instantly obvious. I hope you got something out of last week's episode. I just recorded the Danny Masterson one right before this, so it's still pretty fresh in my brain. I don't have any updates because I recorded 2 in a row, so not much has happened since the hour that I recorded the Danny Masterson episode. I do think the week after this I get my tonsils taken out, so wish me luck there. And I think I can just get started. I don't think I really have anything else to talk about. Check out the website if you haven't checked out the website, madisonshelby.com. The episode transcripts are there if you want to read about it. You can submit a case right on the form there. I have little tiny merch if you want little tiny merch. So do that because it took me a really long time. And if you don't want to check out the website, that's okay. We can get right into the case because Harvey's very sleepy on my lap. Okay. So I'm doing the abduction of Jamie Closs today, which took place 2018, I think. It was all over the news. I don't have any background on Jamie. There wasn't a lot there, and I kind of wonder if they would prefer it that way for her to have, if she would prefer to have some of her life private because of how much this changed her life and ruined it, honestly. So I didn't look too far. Jamie Closs was born in 2005. That's all I've got. Jake Patterson grew up about an hour away from Jamie Closs and her family. Everyone who described him honestly described him as no one memorable, which is insane because I think his graduating class was like 35 people. Do you know how unmemorable you have to be to fly under the radar when there's only 35 people in your class? One former high school classmate told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that Patterson stalked himself at home and at school. He was nice, he was not dumb, he was just too quiet, which explains why he didn't have friends. One classmate described him as just sort of being there. They said Jake didn't go to prom or the class trip or take his class portrait. Another former student who was a year behind Patterson said he seemed like he was one of those guys in school who wanted to fit in but couldn't because he lacked social skills. They said he never really made an impact in any way. And there's really not a lot out there about his background and family. Patterson's parents divorced in 2007. He had an older brother and an older sister. His older brother had a criminal record, including a no-contest plea to 4th-degree sexual assault in 2013. The older brother was sentenced to a year's probation. Neighbors variously reported to local papers that the brothers lived alone in a cabin without supervision and spent time in foster care. He wrote in people's yearbooks that he was joining the Marine Corps. He would have a brief stint for a day at a factory that Jamie's dad worked at, but there's zero evidence they ever crossed paths. It would actually be his job at a cheese factory that would make his path cross with Jamie's. Also, there's no evidence he ever joined the Marine Corps, by the way. I don't think. Or maybe he did something for like a week. He was like not in the Marine Corps. So, he's driving to work one day, driving to this cheese factory that I think is like a little bit away. So he's driving to work. Out of the 2 days he worked there, he only worked there for 2 days, when he was driving behind a school bus. The school bus stopped and picked up 13-year-old Jamie Closs, and as soon as he saw her, he knew he wanted to take her. So he immediately started planning for it, and he planned. This was not, he didn't just show up that night and try and kidnap her. He planned this, and he actually attempted to kidnap her twice before he finally did, but there were too many people around. He went and bought a black ski mask and drove past Jamie's house on October 5th, twice that day, but the amount of cars in the driveway had scared him off, so he decided not to kidnap her that day. So at this point, he knew he had to get pretty prepared. So he shaved his head and his face to not leave any DNA behind. He ripped out the pull cord from the trunk of his car. You know, that thing that glows in the dark? Like if you get stuck in the trunk, it like pops it open. Ripped it right clean out. He grabs his father's 12-gauge shotgun, which he consciously chose because it was such a popular gun that the odds of any shells at the crime scene being tied to him would be very slim because it could be tied to so many different people. And then he wiped all the prints off the gun. During his drives past Jamie's house, he stole a license plate off of a random car and swapped it out on his car. So he's thinking about this. This is too well thought out. On October 15th, 2018, Patterson drove to Jamie Kloss's house, finally ready to kidnap her. He shut off his headlights as he approached the Kloss home, parking near the end of its driveway. Jamie was asleep in her room when her dog Molly started barking. She got up, she saw the car, and she went to wake up her parents. Patterson thought he could see Jamie's dad walking around outside with a flashlight, because Jamie had obviously told him someone was at their house. Patterson approached the front door, opening the storm door, and Jamie's dad was looking through the glass and asked to see his badge. Because he doesn't know who this is. There's this man walking around with a giant shotgun at his home. So best case scenario, Jamie's dad thinks this is the police or something searching for someone. Well, Patterson aimed the gun at his head and pulled the trigger. He fired around into the doorknob and broke into the house, stepping across Jamie's dad's body. Jamie and her mom heard all of this going on and barricaded themselves in the bathroom. They locked and barricaded the door with a cabinet drawer, which was very smart, so they shut the door and then pulled one of the drawers right by it all the way out, so even if you pushed the door open in, it was still almost impossible to get in there. They then got into the tub and swung the shower curtain shut. After they heard the gunshot, Jamie's mom called 911. The call has almost no words in it. Dispatchers heard screaming. One dispatcher returned the call and got Denise Kloss's voicemail. So Patterson goes through the house, passes the locked door. Once he confirms the rest of the house is empty, he goes back to the locked door. So I couldn't tell if he thought maybe the locked door was a trick and they were hiding somewhere else. But he did say he didn't want to leave any witnesses, so it's possible he knew they were in there. He was checking to make sure no one else is in the house. He was going to kill them and then go back for Jamie. So he tries to bust open the door, and it's not working. The drawer made a really great barricade. It took 10 to 15 tries of him ramming his shoulder into the door before it burst open. And he's 6 feet tall and 215 pounds. He's not a tiny man. That's how long it took to open this door. So if you're ever barricading yourself in a tiny room, pull that drawer open. He ripped open the shower curtain and told Denise to duct tape Jamie's mouth shut. When she refused, he did it himself. Well, I don't know if she refused. I think it was taking her a really long time. She's obviously probably physically trembling. And tape, especially tape that doesn't have a tear-off point, tape that just sticks to itself. It's impossible to find where it starts and ends. And so he got frustrated, did it himself, wrapping the duct tape all the way around Jamie's head, in her hair and shit. He also duct taped her hands and feet together. After that, he shot Jamie's mother in the head, looking away when he did it. He then carried Jamie out of the house and put her in the trunk of the car. In total, because I just described a lot of shit to you, in total, he was in her house for about 4 minutes. And they know that because, one, after Denise's phone went to voicemail, the police were dispatched automatically, and they got there about 3 minutes later. And on their way there, they passed Patterson's car with Jamie in the trunk about 20 seconds away from her house. That's how they know he was there for 4 fucking minutes. And I think Jamie said she could hear the police sirens when she was in the trunk, going farther away from her, which is awful. At the Kloss home, deputies discovered the bodies around 1 a.m. Jamie was gone. Amber alerts went off everywhere across the state. A week after she went missing, Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald asked for 2,000 volunteers to help authorities in an expanded routine search of the area around the crime scene for possible evidence in the investigation into Jamie Kloss's disappearance, which is insane because that town only had a little over 3,000 people in it. And this town is like less than 3 square miles large, which is just insane. So they investigated for a week and were like, okay, we need all hands on deck. We need like 2,000 more people to look into this. For some reason, the sheriff felt confident that Jamie was alive and in danger. Around that same time, Jamie's aunt spoke publicly, the first time anyone in the family had done so, to try and release a message to Jamie wherever she was. Her aunt said, "Jamie, we need you here with us to fill that hole we have in our hearts. We all love you to the moon and back. We will never stop looking for you. Not a moment goes by when we aren't thinking of you and praying for you. Your family and your friends miss you so much. Your sparkling eyes, your bright smile, your soft little giggles. Your dog Molly is waiting for you. She's sleeping in one of your sweaters. So if you had been wondering if the dog was okay, she was. Molly was fine." For 3 months, police and volunteers across northern Wisconsin searched for her. Detectives chased thousands of tips. The FBI offered a $25,000 reward for information. Her parents' employer added another $25,000, which is fantastic. Jamie's photo circulated on posters. Strangers attended her parents' funeral. Neighbors gathered at events in her honor. The Barron County Justice Center put up a tree in their lobby around Christmas with her name on it to remind people that she still needed help to be found. Meanwhile, the whole time, Jamie is about 70 miles north of her house, under the bed at Jake Patterson's home. When he got to his house that night, he burned Jamie's clothes and all the duct tape in the downstairs fireplace and had Jamie change into a pair of his sister's pajamas. Patterson forced Jamie to stay under his twin-size bed, shutting her in with bags, laundry bins, and barbells. This was like less to keep her in because she could easily move all of that shit out of the way, and it was more so that he could hear if she was trying to get out. She would have to move stuff, he would hear it because it would make a loud noise. When his father came over on Saturdays, he turned up the bedroom radio to muffle her movements and sounds so she wouldn't be able to say anything. He said he kept her in line by yelling and hitting the walls, especially the 2 times he noticed she had tried to get out from under the bed. He repeatedly warned that bad things would happen to her if she tried to come out. And I think he was screaming, like top of the lungs, screaming at her, which is like a terrifying thing to have happen to anyone. But she's also 13, and this is like a grown man screaming at her. She would be under the bed for 12 hours at a time with no food, water, or access to the bathroom. For a time, he kept the loaded shotgun outside the bedroom in case the police came. But 2 weeks after the kidnapping, he put the weapon away. Patterson later told detectives that he believed he had gotten away with it. And he really did get away with it for a long time. I think 80-something days. On January 10th, about 3 months after he kidnapped Jamie, he decided to apply for a job. So she's been under this bed for 3 months. Under a twin-size bed. You know how fucking small that is? I think he said the height from the ground to the bed was like 2.5 feet. So this day he decides to apply for a job. That morning, Patterson had told Jamie he was going out for a few hours. He intended to apply for a nighttime warehouse job at a liquor distributor. He got too comfortable, honestly. First of all, thinking he could get a job. You can't work a whole shift while you have someone kidnapped at your home under your bed that they could easily get out of. Dumb. Also, he's telling Jamie he's leaving for a few hours, which he might have done. I don't know if we put it in here before. I think she said he would say he would leave and then he wouldn't, just to see if she would come out. So he got too comfortable. He got too confident. He leaves to go to apply for this job. Jamie takes off the second she hears him leave. She pushes the barbells and bags out of the way. She ran out of the front door in just her pajamas and shoes on the wrong feet that were way too big because they were his shoes. Also, it's Wisconsin in the winter. It is extremely cold and snowy right now. If you saw her walking around outside, it would be alarming, I think, in these conditions, especially in shoes that are like flopping off of her feet. At that time, Jean Nutter was walking her dog near her driveway about 4 p.m. when she saw a young girl in not weather-appropriate attire walking in the street. The girl came closer and told Jeannie, "I'm lost and I don't know where I am and I need help." I don't know if it's Jean or Jeannie. It always confuses me when there's more than one N. It's Jeanne. Jean. I think Jean. Anyway, she tells Jean, "I'm lost, I don't know where I am, and I need help." Jean said she instantly recognized her from the news and all the posters about her. But then the girl said her name was Jamie Kloss. So she huddled up to Jamie and they walked to the nearest house. And for good reason, Jean is very nervous. Of course, this is I don't want to say exciting, but you want to help her. But in the back of her mind, she's thinking, like, whoever's been holding you could be right behind us. And who knows what he'll do. So they go to the nearest house and just start pounding on the door. So Kristen Kasinkas looks out the window to see her neighbor, Jean, looking all frantic and beating down her door with a very small, messy-looking teenage girl. And then Jean yelled, "This is Jamie Kloss, call 911 right now." They went inside, and Jean told Kristen's husband to get a weapon, and they called 911 while her husband guarded the door with his gun. A dispatcher answered. I'm just going to read the transcript here, so if it sounds disjointed, it's because it's just kind of hard to read. A dispatcher answered, and Kristen Kasinkas said, "Hi, I have a young lady at my house right now, and she has said her name is Jamie Kloss." The dispatcher asked, "Have you seen her photo?" She said, "Yes, it is her. I 100% think it's her." They then asked to talk to Jean, who was the one who found Jamie. The dispatcher said, "So how did she come up to your cabin?" Jean said, "I was walking my dog, and we were almost home, and she was walking toward me, crying, saying, 'You've got to help me, you've got to help me.' So I didn't want to go into my cabin because it's too close to Patterson's house." This is the first time that anyone references Jake Patterson. The dispatcher said, and she said her name is Jamie Kloss, and Jean said yes. And then when I walked into this house, they also recognized her immediately from the poster. She then added, "So we're kind of scared he might come back and get her." And the dispatcher said, "Yeah." So Jean's asking if the cops could get here soon. The dispatcher's telling her they have like a lot of people on the way, but I have to keep you on the line until they get there. The dispatcher again clarifies that she said her name was Jamie Kloss. She said yes. And then Jean said that Jamie told her he killed my parents and I want to go home, help me. The dispatcher asked what the guy's name was, and Jean said Jake Patterson. The dispatcher said, and she said he killed her parents and she wants to go home. Jean said yes. She didn't know where she was. When I saw her, she was saying, "Where am I? Wait, where am I?" And I said, "You're in Wisconsin." The dispatcher asked, and did she say that he is gone right now? And Jean said yes. Jamie wasn't sure when he would be back because she oftentimes didn't know when he was gone because he kept the music up so loud, so she couldn't hear him leaving or getting back. Maybe that's what I was thinking when I said he was trying to trick her. Maybe he turned it up so loud so that she never knew when he was leaving or coming back home. When I said he was trying to trick her, I think I was thinking of the Cleveland kidnappings, which is another one I did. Jean then describes where Jake lives because she would pass his house when she walked her dog. There were always a lot of cars there, and there was a sign that said Patterson Retreat. Deputies pulled up to the house just before sunset at 4:43 p.m. When Patterson got home, Jamie was gone. He searched the house, then went outside and noticed her footprints. He got back in his car to try and find her. Just then, the deputy driving with Jamie in the car down the street spotted a red vehicle, a Kia or a Ford, approaching from the other direction. Jamie couldn't say whether it was him or not, so the deputy just alerted her colleagues. Patterson by now had switched his license plate back to his real license plate, so another deputy ran his plate, showed the vehicle was registered to someone with the last name Patterson. So 2 sergeants stopped the car. One ordered the driver to put his hands up and then open the door. Jake Patterson identified himself. He said he knew what this was about. He said, "I did it." Within hours, sheriff's deputies had arrested Jake Patterson. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 1 count of kidnapping, and 1 of armed burglary. He was ordered and held on $5 million bail. A reporter for KARE 11, KARE 11 News actually mailed letters to Jake Patterson in prison asking him questions that weren't covered in the court documents, which is just insane to me. KARE 11 wrote that Lou Raguse sent a letter to Patterson on January 17th with questions about the case which were not included in the court file. Questions many in our community would like to know the answer to, including whether Patterson plans to plead guilty or not. Jake did not respond to this letter. Raguse sent him a second letter on February 19th that included additional questions and began by saying, "I'm a reporter for KARE 11 News in Minneapolis and have been covering the case since Jamie disappeared. I have many questions that have not been answered through court filings. Please write back if you can." What's even crazier about this is that Jake responded to this letter, which is just crazy. Can you imagine reading the court documents that come out about something and then thinking, kind of want to know more about this, and then writing the criminal, be like, "Can you tell me more about your crimes?" And then that criminal writing and telling you more about their crimes? That's insane. Okay, so I'm going to read you the letter that Jake Patterson wrote to Lou. He said, "Lou, hi, IDK if I'll actually send this. I'll answer some of your questions. Some I can't. I won't put a lot of details anyways. There's a lot of redactions and scribbles in these, so if it sounds disjointed, it's because a lot of the parts are missing. Question 1. Why did you confess when you were caught, and why did you confess in such detail? He said, I knew when I was caught, which I thought would happen a lot sooner, I wouldn't fight anything. I tried to give them everything. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Wasn't completely honest, so they didn't have to interview Jamie. They did anyways and hurt her more for no reason. Question 2. What is your plan now? Plead guilty or take the case all the way to trial? Jake Patterson said, plead guilty. I want Jamie and her relatives to know that. I don't want them to worry about a trial. I was actually going to on the 6th, but in a case like this, it's not really allowed, so the judge moved it to the 27th of March. Question 3. What led you to want to kidnap a girl in the first place? He said it's not black and white. Question 4. Do you have any remorse or regrets for the things that you did? He said huge amounts. I can't believe I did this. Question 5. What was your long-term plan if Jamie had not escaped that day? 5. He said, won't say. It was really stupid, though, looking back. 6. Did you confide in anyone or leave any hints that people failed to pick up on? He said no. Question 7. Did your family really have no clue? How often were family members in your cabin, and how close did they come to discovering Jamie under the bed? He said no one knew. My dad only came on Saturdays, the same time every day, so it was a routine. Jamie hides on Saturdays. My family respects privacy, so no one ever went in my room. Question 8. Did you ever return to Barron after the crime or insert yourself in any of the vigils or anything being held in Jamie's honor? Did you ever get close to her family following the shootings or the kidnappings? He said, I stayed away from Barron. Question 9. How closely did you follow the news coverage, and was Jamie aware of the news coverage and the extent of which people were searching for her? He said, I followed it through my phone. If something popped up on TV about it, I would change the channel. I would tell Jamie, I'm sorry, I can't watch this. He said, I don't know what she actually knew. Question 10. When in your life did you realize you were capable of doing something like this? I just watched a 2020 special on BTK Killer, and he told a reporter he knew as a teen he wanted to do something like this one day, and he was jealous over attention other killers like Ted Bundy were receiving. Did you feel any of those same thoughts? He said, the cops say I planned this thoroughly and that I said that. They're really good at twisting your words around, put them in different spots, straight up lie. Little mad about that. Trying to cover up their mistake, I guess. This was mostly on impulse. I don't think like a serial killer. So he's basically saying the cops are trying to make it seem like he had been planning to do something like this forever. And he's saying it was sort of like, yes, I planned it, but I hadn't planned for like years to kidnap a girl. It was just like a spur of the moment type of thing. Question 11. What goes through the mind of someone who wants to carry out something like this? He said, at the time I was really pissed. I didn't want to. The reason I did is complicated. No one will believe or can even imagine how sorry I am for hurting Jamie this much. I can't express it. On the back of the letter, he wrote, I'm sorry, Jamie, in bubble letters. And then under that wrote, for everything, I know it doesn't mean much. Sorry that I murdered your parents in front of you. Here's a nice little bubble letter apology. On March 27th, 2019, Jake Patterson pled guilty on 2 counts of intentional homicide, which carry a sentence of life imprisonment, and 1 count of kidnapping. In court, he was crying while doing so. I read he was struggling to even get through the words guilty. He was also being charged with burglary, but that charge got dropped, I think. One of Patterson's attorneys, Richard Jones, told the court that the 21-year-old had wanted to enter a plea from the day we met him and was adamant that this is what he wanted to do. The goal was to make it as easy as possible on Jamie's family, so the plea deal and him pleading guilty meant there wouldn't be a trial, so Jamie wouldn't have to be called to testify. His lawyers tried to explain to him about insanity pleas and this and that, trying to help him get a lesser sentence, but he very much wanted to plead guilty and be done with it. Judge James Babler scheduled Patterson's sentencing for May 24th. Before doing that, he explained to Patterson that his sentence could lead to life in prison for the killings of Jamie's parents and up to 40 years in prison for the kidnapping. As Patterson was led from the courtroom by a guard at the end of the hearing, he turned to the courtroom audience and in a clear voice said, "Bye, Jamie." Luckily, Jamie wasn't there, but also how dare he. Jake's father, seated a few feet behind him, sobbed silently throughout the hearing, leaning forward with his shoulders heaving and frequently wiping his hand across his face. On May 24th, his sentencing hearing took place. The defense acknowledged Patterson would likely never get out of prison, but asked that his sentence be designed in a way where he could have a chance to work on his issues while incarcerated. They said Jake Patterson needs rehabilitation that is otherwise difficult to accommodate in a prison setting. The prosecutor said Mr. Patterson is a cold-blooded killer who traumatized a 13-year-old girl for 88 days. He brutally murdered James and Denise because they stood in the way stood in the way of his getting away with kidnapping the girl he saw getting on the bus, a girl whose name he didn't even know when he kidnapped her. Patterson repeatedly shook his head no as Wright spoke about his crimes. Wright went on to say that Patterson was extremely dangerous. Lindsay Smith, the niece of James and Denise Kloss, gave a statement to the judge. I was so very close to my aunt, and now I won't have her at one of the most important days of my life because of you. One of the most painful things for me to think about that last moment of my aunt's life were the worst and scariest moments of her life. No one should leave this earth in such a horrible way. She added, I hope you live the rest of your life dealing with the pain you've put my family through. Before he was sentenced, Jamie Kloss's victim statement was read to the court by her lawyer, which I will read entirely because it is important. She wrote, Last October, Jake Patterson took a lot of things that I loved away from me. It makes me the most sad that he took away my mom and my dad. I loved my mom and my dad very much, and they loved me very much. They did all they could to make me happy and protect me. He took them away from me forever. I felt safe in my home, and I loved my room and all of my belongings. He took all of that, too. I don't even want to see my home or my stuff because of the memory of that night. My parents and my home were the most important things in my life. He took them away from me in a way that will always leave me with a horrifying memory. I have to have an alarm in the house now so I can sleep. I used to love to go out with my friends. I loved going to school. I loved to dance. He took all of those things away from me. It's too hard for me to go out in public. I get scared and I get anxious. These are just ordinary things that anyone like me should be able to do, but I can't because he took them away from me. But there's some things that Jake Patterson can never take from me. He can't take my freedom. He thought that he could own me, but he was wrong. I was smarter. I watched his routine and I took back my freedom. I will always have my freedom and he will not. Jake Patterson can never take away my courage. He thought he could control me, but he couldn't. I feel like what he did was what a coward would do. I was brave and he was not. He can never take away my spirit. He thought that he could make me like him, but he was wrong. He can't ever change me or take away who I am. He can't stop me from being happy and moving forward with my life. I will go on to do great things in my life, and he will not. Jake Patterson will never have any power over me. I feel like I have some power over him because I get to tell a judge what I think should happen to him. He stole my parents from me. He stole almost everything I love from me. For 88 days, he tried to steal me, and he didn't care who he hurt or who he killed to do that. He should stay locked up forever. And that was Jamie's victim statement, which is so powerful. I can't believe. Well, she probably wasn't 13 at this time. She's probably a little older, but to be able to write those words she is brave. She's everything that this loser is not. Patterson said in a final statement before he was sentenced, he said, I would absolutely do anything to take back what I did. He said, I would die to bring them back. I don't care about me. I'm just so sorry. Jake Patterson received 1 life sentence each for the murders of James and Denise Kloss and was given a 40-year sentence for the kidnapping, including 25 years in prison and 15 years on parole. Jamie Kloss's aunt, Jennifer Smith, who did the first message when she went missing, expressed satisfaction over the sentencing of Jake Patterson. That day, she said, today is a very important step in the process of helping Jamie to move forward. We are satisfied with the outcome and believe that it will give Jamie some much-needed peace of mind. Smith then described how Jamie was dealing with everything. She said Jamie has made a great deal of progress, but obviously has much work left to do, and said Jamie will very likely have more to say in the future about this. So we do get an update from People Magazine and ABC News about Jamie a year after her abduction. So this is still 2019, so a couple of years ago. She said in an exclusive statement to ABC News, I really want to thank everyone for all of the kindness and concern that people all over the country have shown me. I am very happy to be home and getting back to the activities that I enjoy. I love hanging out with all of my friends, and I feel stronger every day. The teen's aunt, Jennifer Smith, and their family attorney, Chris Gramstrom, said in a statement, Jamie continues to work very hard on her emotional well-being. She is moving forward and courageously reclaiming her life. She has also been able to spend a good deal of time with her friends, just hanging out and being a typical teenager. Jamie's incredible spirit and strength continue to inspire everyone around her. At a news conference, their family lawyer said that the teen's father, James, was extremely strong. He was an athlete, he had great strength, and her mother, Denise, had a huge amount of love and caring and kindness for everyone around her. Jamie has both of those qualities that she's gotten from her parents. She has the strength and she's got the heart. It's her strength and her heart that will and has continued to get her through this. And that is the kidnapping of Jamie Kloss. I think it's nice that he pled guilty to avoid all of that, but, like, how dare he do it in a way where it seems like he's doing them a favor, or like he's doing this for you. Like, everyone is in this situation because of you. You can't, like, all of a sudden do things to make it easier because you're the one who invented the problem. And I did sort of like do a double take when I was reading that. Like, it never occurred to me that he didn't even know her name when he kidnapped her. He knew nothing about her. He saw her getting on the bus one day and decided, like, I'm going to kidnap whoever that is, and full on murdered her parents to accomplish it. I think that's actual insanity. I'm so glad this man is in prison forever. He can be as sorry as he wants. Whether he really is sorry or not, I don't really care. He full on ruined a 13-year-old girl's life. And I hope that she gets the help, or she has been getting the help that she needs to live a fulfilling life, or the life that she wants, because she deserves everything after what had happened to her. And that's all I got for you. Kind of short, but there was like no background, and then there is obviously no trial because he's such a kind individual. He avoided a trial for them by pleading guilty. Asshole. All right, I will see you next week for a regular episode. If you're a subscriber, I'll see you Monday for a little short one to start your week off. And that's it. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. Goodbye.